So the title of tonight's webinar is Burned Out, Stress Relief in Your Career, and we thank you for joining us for the session today. A few details about webinar basics, just so that you're aware. There's a few things available to you as a viewer of the webinar. All attendees are on mute during the presentation, so you don't need to worry about is my sound going to be picked up at all. You're all on mute right now. Today's session is going to be recorded, and just so that you know, this recording will later be added to our online video library of career resources. So by joining this session today, you're giving consent to be part of a recorded session. During the session, there'll be a chat box that's available. It's been available before we started today as well. So on the screen, it shows where that is and what that looks like. And when you're in the chat box, you can decide to chat with the panelists here, so all of us that are helping to coordinate it tonight, or you can say, I would rather chat with all the panelists and all the attendees. It's really up to you, but that's a great place to put any questions that you have for our presenter, Karen Costa, this evening, or if you have any other issues with connectivity or any other kinds of feedback that you might have, feel free to use that chat box at any point. It's not going to interrupt us in any way. Do enter in your information and questions as soon as you have them, okay? All right. So I'm going to introduce those of us on this side. So my name is Karen Schultz-Battistoni. I am the manager of professional and alumni volunteer services at University of Massachusetts Amherst and the Alumni Association. And with me this evening is Mackenzie Yell, who is the professional and volunteer services intern. And the two of us are going to be behind the scenes helping with collecting some of the questions and providing any support that is needed to you, the attendees, and also to our presenter tonight. So if you have any questions as we go throughout, feel free to, as I said, utilize that chat box. Okay. So our speaker tonight, and we thank you for joining us, is Karen Costa. She graduated in 2006 with a master's in education from University of Massachusetts Amherst. She has a bachelor's degree in sociology from Syracuse University and a certificate of advanced graduate studies in educational leadership from Northeastern University. Karen is a writer, educator, and yoga teacher. She has spent over a decade working and teaching in higher education in roles that focus on student success, faculty development, and online learning. She is a staff writer for Women in Higher Education. She's also a certified yoga teacher and a level 1 yoga for arthritis teacher who is passionate about helping people to live their best lives. So thank you, Karen, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Karen. And I'm going to get my presentation up here for you. So let's get that moving. All right. So I want to welcome everybody as I'm pulling this up and just share with you that stress is definitely part of my story. I was in a job where I loved the work, but I was really sort of challenged by stress and really pushing up against that burnout. And we're going to talk about the difference between stress and burnout. So I just want to share that with you to let you know that this is something I've experienced. I'm also job searching myself. I stopped working full-time about 6 years ago. I've been working part-time, mostly online, mostly remotely. And I'm ready to make that shift back to full-time work. So I am job searching along with all of you. I'm experiencing some of these things as well. So we're going to get moving. Here's what we're going to be covering tonight. And I do want to again mention, if you have a journal, I prefer those composition books you can get for 50 cents or $1. If you have a journal that you use to sort of track your life experience, I encourage you to pull that out. A notepad will do. If you don't have anything, not to worry. So we're going to be doing some exercises tonight. My goal is that you leave this webinar with 3 specific, simple exercises that you can do to help relieve your stress. We're going to be learning more about stress. One of the things I've noticed is that we seem to talk a lot about stress. You know, it's sort of part of our common language. You know, I'm so stressed out. He's so stressed out. She's so stressed out. But I'm not sure how much we know about the physiology of stress, what it's actually doing in our bodies. So I don't want to scare anybody off. We're not taking a science course tonight, but my hope is to give you some very accessible information about stress so that you have a better understanding of what's going on in your body, which will help you to more effectively address stress. And we're going to be weaving in throughout the night some talk about the job search and career in general and how stress can impact that. Okay. And at the end, we'll set some action steps for you as well. So again, if you haven't already, grab a journal. And another option, if you'd like, is to jot this answer into the chat box. So I want you to take a moment and ask yourself, where am I right now in terms of stress? So 1 being no stress and 10 being the worst stress I've ever experienced in my life. How do you feel in this moment? Okay. So I always tell my students that I'll never ask them to do something that I wouldn't ask them, that I wouldn't do myself. So I'll say right now, I do enjoy webinars, sort of that adrenaline kicks in, but there's like a snowstorm going on tonight. So that's in the back of my mind, like, is there going to be thunder snow? So I'm probably a 6, a little higher than average for me. So where you are right now. And then I want you to also jot down or think about or type in the chat, where are you in general in your life? So if you looked at maybe the past month or so, what is your typical stress level? Again, 1 being no stress, 10 being the worst stress of your life. So I'm seeing some 7s, some 6s, some mid-range stress. So this is our first exercise. Congratulations. This is something that you can do to help address your stress. You took a step back from your stress. You took a step outside of it to become the observer. So in yoga world, we call that witness consciousness. We call it becoming the observer. It's distancing ourselves from the intensity of stress to try to look at it more objectively. So this is a practice you can do on a daily basis. What is my stress level right now? What has my stress level been in general? Okay, so you can do this before an interview, you can do this at work, and you can write it down, or you can just sort of check in with yourself. What is my stress level right now? Okay, so this is your first exercise, noticing your stress. By noticing it and giving it a number, you're stepping outside of it. So that will help it to lose some of its grip on you. Okay, feel free to keep chatting as we move through here. So here's some good news. I didn't see anybody say 1, okay? 1 was no stress. That's really good news, and here's why. There's no such thing as a stress-free life. So this is one of the books I'm going to reference tonight. It's called The Stress of Life by Hans Selye. It was written in 1956. He's considered one of sort of the godfathers of stress research. And it's called The Stress of Life, everybody, right? So the idea is that life is inherently stressful. If we are alive, we're going to experience stress. So that you all had higher than a 1 is really good news because it means that you're alive. The other thing I want to emphasize here is that sometimes I think our culture can put pressure on us to lead this sort of perfect stress-free life. We often hear about social media and how people are sharing, their wonderful experiences, and it can feel as if maybe we're doing something wrong because we're experiencing stress. You're not. It is part of life to experience stress. So our goal here tonight is not to get you to a 1, because actually that was a sort of a trick. The stress-free 1 does not exist, okay? We're always under some level, whether we're realizing it or not. We're always under some level of stress. And I'm going to talk about what that might look like in more detail when we get into the anatomy and physiology of stress. So just noting that, hey, I'm normal, I'm experiencing stress, I'm alive, can help us shift our perspective on stress. So let's talk about what stress is. Let's define it. We hear a lot of people saying they're stressed out. You might have said recently you're stressed out. If you have a definition of stress that you'd like to type in the chat, feel free. So here are the ones that we're going to talk about tonight. So I'm using the work of Hans Selye. I just showed you his book. By the way, I have a reference list on one of the last slides, so you'll see the list of books that we're referencing tonight. So Selye was, he was a doctor, and he was interested in finding a unified theory of illness and disease. He wanted to find like the base cause of every illness and disease. So he started researching stress, which in the 50s was sort of a new area of study. And he did a lot of great work. He defined stress as the non-specific response of the body to any demand. Any demand causes this, what we call stress, okay? It might not cause an extreme stress reaction. It might not even cause a noticeable reaction, but any demand on our bodies is going to cause some reaction of stress, okay? The other one of my favorite researchers, and again, this is on the reference list at the end. I love this book. If any of you have kids, this is fantastic. I just can't even, I tell everybody about it. It's called Self-Reg. Stuart Shanker is the author. He's a clinical psychologist out of Canada. And he defines stress as all those stimuli that require us to expend energy to maintain some sort of balance. So any stimuli, it can be external, but it can also be internal. So a thought is an example, right? So has anybody had the thought, you know, I don't like my job, right? That's a stressor. Okay. Anything that's causing our body to have to burn some energy to get back to balance. Our body actually doesn't really ever stay there. We're constantly in this state of flux, but we're burning energy to get back there. We're trying to get back to that balance point. So one of the reasons some of you may experience fatigue if you're experiencing a lot of stress in your life, because our bodies are constantly working to try to get us back to balance. Burnout is extreme stress and exhaustion. So when you've been in a state of chronic stress for a very long time, you can experience sort of this almost something that's in need of a somewhat immediate medical intervention, and that can really be wearing on your organs and your health. That's how we would define burnout: extreme stress. Feel free to ask, to post any questions. Yeah, and Eric, the job I had that I liked was a source of stress. It was a lot of things. It was a lot of things. It was being busy, having a 2-year-old at home, working full time. I was in school again at that time. Challenges with new assignments at work, things like that. Pretty typical stuff. The thing is, I didn't know a lick about stress. I didn't know a thing about stress at that time in my life. I feel like this should be taught in schools. I learned a lot about stress from going through it and surviving it, and sort of finding my own strategies. But then I learned a ton about stress in my yoga teacher training. So we're going to get into that in a little more detail. And Melissa, we're going to talk about stress management specifically in a bit. So I do see your question. So let's talk about the 2 types of stress. This is something nobody ever told me. I didn't know this until I started really experiencing stress and researching it on my own. If you have a journal and you want to journal about this, great exercise. So there's 2 types of stress. Distress, this is what we commonly think about when we think about stress. This is the negative stuff, okay? So you go to start your car and it won't start. Let's all knock on wood that none of these things happen to us. A challenging manager at work, okay? A toxic work environment, being unemployed. Those are all pretty obvious examples of distress. Health challenges, distress, what we would call negative stress. The other thing that I never knew about is eustress, which is positive stress. So our children, if any of you have kids, children are a great example. Anytime we have to maybe, let's say, we're throwing a child's birthday party, or we need to help out a friend. Positive things. A job interview is, to me, the quintessential example of eustress, right? This is a positive thing. Somebody wants to meet with me for a job that I'm really interested in. But is a job interview stressful? Absolutely. I think for most of us it is. So another strategy that you can use is to journal about and notice some examples of distress in your life and some examples of eustress. Writing things down, journaling is one of the stress management tools I'm going to recommend. When I think about journaling, I think about the Wizard of Oz. And I think about when Dorothy at the end, she throws water on the Wicked Witch and she kind of melts away. To me, journaling does that to stress. When you bring those thoughts that are in your head out into the light, out into a journal, it kind of takes away their power. So if you can identify 3 sources of these in your life, that would be really beneficial. The other thing I want to say is that this is not hard and fast. This is somewhat subjective. Stress is somewhat subjective. So your distress might be my eustress, right? And vice versa. So learning to identify your sources of stress is really an important part of this process. Okay, so we're going to prep now for one of our first stress exercises. And it's going to be a somatic exercise. So somatic meaning of the body, okay? Many of us, especially if we're under chronic stress, we can get stuck in here. We get stuck in our heads. That's why we have the woman carrying the giant brain. She looks so happy that she doesn't look very stressed. So one of the quotes I want to share with you, if anyone's ever seen Ken Robinson's TED Talk, it's called How Schools Are Killing Creativity. And he has a British accent, so everything he says sounds kind of cool and funny anyway. But one of his quotes is, he's talking about academics, professors, and he says, typically professors live in their heads. They look upon their body as a form of transport for their heads. It's a way of getting their head to meetings. In short, they are disconnected from their bodies. So this leads into the work of Bessel van der Kolk. Again, this is a book recommendation, so it's on the list at the end of the seminar, of the webinar. He wrote a book. Van der Kolk is a trauma researcher. He's actually out of Boston. He wrote a book called The Body Keeps a Score. And what he says is that the daily traumas of life that we deal with, and the more significant traumas, are stored in our bodies. They're stored in our tissues. So he argues that talk therapy, talking through our challenges is not always effective for dealing with those challenges. He advocates for physical work, touch work, things like yoga, Tai Chi, massage, to help move some of those things through. So there's a growing body of research that shows that doing things that bring us back into contact with our bodies, which sounds really funny because we're saying, what do you mean out of touch with my body? I've been in my body my whole life. It's a sense that we become sort of more head focused than body focused. Okay, so anything we can do to bring ourselves back into touch with our bodies can be a really positive stress relief tool. So we're going to do our first exercise tonight, and this is called hands, shoulders, belly. So what I want you to do is to bring, your fists can be on your lap or you can bring them up high like this. And I want you to squeeze your hands into the tightest fist you can. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Keep your fists clenched, noticing how this feels. Exhaling through your nose. Again, noticing how this feels. One more inhale through your nose. And then on your exhale, out your mouth, letting that go. Okay, breathe normally for a minute here. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring our attention to our shoulders. So I want you to draw your shoulders up towards your ears. If you have any neck or back issues and this is not safe for you to do, you can just close your eyes and imagine that you're doing it. It will have the same benefit. So we're drawing our shoulders up through our ears. Let's take an inhale through your nose and exhale through the nose. Noticing how this feels, noticing any thoughts that come up. One more inhale through the nose and then exhale out the mouth and release. And we'll do one more. So bringing your attention to your belly, you can put your hands on your belly if you'd like. I want you to squeeze your belly. Tighten your belly. Take an inhale through the nose. Exhale through the nose. One more inhale through the nose, noticing how this feels, and then release, exhale through the mouth, letting the belly go. So just taking a moment here to notice any sensations, noticing any thoughts that have come up for you. So somatics, again, somatics meaning of the body. So what we just did is called tense and release. So we are intentionally tensing so that we can notice what it feels like to release. Okay? Many of us are holding habitual tension in our bodies. Sometimes at night when I can't fall asleep, I have learned through my somatic practice to bring my attention to my hands. And you know what's crazy is that sometimes when I'm not sleeping, I'll notice my hands and my hands are clenched. And I'll be like, what? Where did that come from? I will intentionally release my hands, and typically very soon after I can fall asleep. It's just a habit. It's just a habit. So some things to think about. You're welcome to share anything you'd like in the chat. How did it feel when you had your fists clenched? How did it feel when you were in the states of tension? How did that feel for you inside? What were the thoughts that came up? How did the state of tension impact your breath? Most people, when I do this exercise, notice that it's more difficult to breathe when they're in a state of tension. And that first breath after you do the release feels really open and good. So notice in your body, we all have different body stories. Where do you hold tension? It's in different places for everybody. These are three that are very common that I see when I work with students in yoga classes. I'll often, in the beginning of class, we'll be relaxing. I'll be guiding people through breath, and someone's shoulders will be up toward their ears, right? It's habitual. It's held tension that's just over time accumulated. So we really have to work on noticing that. But this is so simple. You don't need to go to a whole yoga class. That took us maybe 30 seconds. The other thing I want to say is that this is something that you can use. It's very discreet. So you can use this before a job interview, right? So you could just be doing a very subtle tense and release. You could just be maybe moving your shoulders around a little bit. The state of tension does impact your mental and emotional state, and it absolutely impacts your breath. And we're going to talk about the breath in a few slides and why it's important that the breath is open. So if we're tight, if we're clenched, if we're in a state of tension, we're not going to be breathing as well. And that's going to be a stressor. That's going to be one of those stimuli that activates that stress response. So by coming intentionally into the state of release, we will be bringing ourselves out of that stress response. This can also be a whole body practice. So if you want to lay down, tensing your entire body, and then exhaling and letting go. So this is very simple, but can be very powerful. If you do this every day, you're going to notice a difference. If you do it once, that's great too, but it's even more effective if you're doing this on a daily basis. So let's talk a little bit more about stress. And in particular, I want to zone in on the autonomic nervous system. And again, we're not going crazy science here. This is going to be layman's terms. The autonomic nervous system, the way you can remember that is it sounds like automatic. These are the parts of our nervous system that we don't actually have to intentionally control. So things like blinking, that's a natural thing that's happening. Our autonomic nervous system is controlling that. Our breath is, although we can alter our breath, it is something that is happening automatically. Okay. So there are two parts of the autonomic nervous system. The first is the sympathetic nervous system, the SNS. Doesn't it sound like it's very nice? It's sympathetic. It's sympathetic to our needs, right? Well, it is nice and we need it. It's what gets the job done. It's what gets us up, and it's been used to change the world. It's wonderful. It's also known as our fight or flight response. Some people also identify freeze. If you have ever, you're driving and a car pulls out, right? That response, that feeling that you have, that is the wonder of our sympathetic nervous system, okay? Because in that second, your system was ready to go, right? You hear stories about people lifting cars off of people. That's the sympathetic nervous system going into action. And the reason there's a tiger, there were much scarier tiger images, but they actually stressed me out a little bit. The reason there's a tiger is that the sympathetic nervous system, we evolved, for millions of years. The traditional example is imagining a predator, right? We're living in a cave hundreds of thousands of years ago, and we have to go out and find our food, and we see a predator. The sympathetic nervous system evolved over those many years, and it gave us the hormones, the adrenaline that we needed to run or to fight to survive. Okay, so it's truly a miracle. We wouldn't be here without it. The other side, most of us are quite familiar with it, by the way. Most of us are quite familiar with that feeling of intensity. The other side of the equation, though, that people are less familiar with is the parasympathetic nervous system, the PNS, the rest and digest. And these are meant to be in balance. So this is the calm feeling. And, I'd love to see in the chat, is this something that you're connected to? Do you know what calm feels like? Do you have calm built into your day? When was the last time you felt a sense of deep, calm relaxation? That's your parasympathetic nervous system. Your immune system is deeply interwoven with the parasympathetic nervous system. So we know, we've heard this a million times, that when we are under chronic stress, yes, I see meditation. We're going to talk about that. Well, we know that when we're under chronic stress that we're more likely to get sick, right? Our parasympathetic nervous system is what keeps our immune system really strong. So what happens if we are living in the sympathetic nervous system? Some people actually call this sympathetic psychosis. It is when we are stuck in chronic stress. We are living in the fight or flight or freeze response, and we don't spend any time in the parasympathetic nervous system. We don't spend any time in a state of calm. Stuart Shanker calls this imbalanced arousal regulation. It's a fancy way of saying chronic stress. Liliana, I think many people do. You're not doing anything wrong if you're living in that place, and that you're here is a really good step. Stress begets stress. Okay. So when we experience chronic stress, it makes us prone to more stress. So here's the thing. We've got to do something to interrupt it. We've got to do something to break that cycle. And we're going to be talking about that. That tense and release we just did is a way to start breaking that cycle. Journaling is a way to start breaking that cycle. Assessing our stress level. Am I a 4? Am I a 10? Am I a 2? Is a way to break that cycle. Neuroscientists have a saying that I love. They say, we wire what we fire. It's a cool way of saying practice makes perfect, right? So if you practice anything for 23 or even sometimes 24 hours a day, you're going to be really good at it, right? If you practice the piano for 23 hours a day, you're going to get better and better, right? Many of us practice stress 23 hours or, for every waking hour, and we carry it into our sleeping hours as well. If you're having sort of disrupted sleep, you're still in that stress response when you're sleeping. Many of us don't have a break from stress. That's chronic stress. Okay. So we've practiced stress so good that, no, I wouldn't want to, practicing the piano that much would certainly be stressful, but you get the idea. We wire what we fire. So the more we do something, the better we get at it. So I don't want to be great at living in the sympathetic nervous system. I want to be great at finding balance. I'm seeing people writing, this is really wonderful. I'm seeing that you all are sharing sort of that maybe you've missed out on that calm feeling, and maybe you're living more in the sympathetic nervous system. That's a great start. Stuart Shanker, we talked about him. He's self-reg. He calls this shifting from our learning brain to our survival brain. So when we go into chronic stress, we go into our survival mode. Some people call it our lizard brain. When we're job searching, when we're trying to better our lives or our careers, we want to be in our learning brain, right? We don't want to be in lizard brain. We want to be our most evolved selves, okay? And in order to do that, we need to break the cycle of stress. Joyce, I'm so glad you're calm now. I really am. So I pulled the slide up from the Mayo Clinic. These are some of the common effects of stress. You've probably heard about this. This is not news to anybody. I underlined ones that I thought were particularly connected to the job search process, right? Fatigue. Job searching takes a lot of time. I know a friend of mine recently lost her job, and she was saying job searching is a full-time job. I don't know, like, I don't know how this is taking so much of my time. It really, you know, she's really looking, and it's become a really full-time job for her. If we're not getting enough sleep, that's exacerbating the problem. We certainly don't want to lack motivation or focus when we're job searching, right? So all of these things obviously can impact our careers and our job search. These are all related to stress. The other thing I want to point out on this slide, Suzanne, absolutely, those will be available on the UMass website. Karen's going to work on getting the presentation up. So the other thing I want to mention on this slide, you might notice this, common effects of stress, anxiety, common effects of stress, sadness or depression. Think about that for a minute. Anxiety and depression are caused by stress, in part. There are certainly exceptions to that rule. Think about that. There's a lot of overlap between stress and mental health challenges. And I'm going to give you a resource at the end if that's something you want to explore. But these are things that we want to start educating ourselves about. This to me is, again, this should be common knowledge, how stress impacts us and what we can do about it. And that's why we're here. So another little self-assessment here, pull out your notebook, or you can think it, or you can jot it into the chat. If you had to estimate how much time do I spend in my sympathetic nervous system, that's our fight or flight. That's the feeling that we get when, you know, the car pulls out. How much time am I, or when our boss says, I need to see you, right, in an ominous tone, or when our coworker is maybe not pulling their weight, or whatever the case may be. How much time are you in that sympathetic nervous system, and how much time are you in the parasympathetic mode? So Ben, awesome, 50-50. For some of you, it might be 80-20. For some of you, it might feel as if it's 100% in that sympathetic nervous system. And others might be in a greater balance. But just noticing that tonight is really important. So here's what I want you to know. Nature, our bodies are miraculous, and our autonomic nervous system, I'm fascinated by it. I can't get enough of it. It's one of my passions, learning more about it. There is a fail-safe switch. Our PNS, our parasympathetic nervous system, and the sympathetic nervous system, they cannot be turned on at the same time. When one of them turns on, it turns the other one off. So you might not exactly know, you know, consciously when that's happening, but it's really important. And here's why. If you can turn on your parasympathetic nervous system, if you can turn on, remember the baby in the inner tube, whatever your version of that looks like, it might be, you know, whatever calm feels like for you. If you can turn that on, it will turn off your sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system cannot stay on when the parasympathetic nervous system is turned on. So really, really important. So what some people do is they try to attack stress. They try to like beat it, right? I'm gonna get that stress. They can sometimes have that approach, and that can create more stress. So the antidote is to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So another term we use to talk about the parasympathetic nervous system is called the relaxation response. They're the same thing. The relaxation response is the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system. And it is, I truly believe that this is our superpower. The relaxation response is our superpower, okay? This term, relaxation response, comes from the work of Herbert Benson. He's a doctor. He is out of Harvard Mind Body Institute. I gave you his website. He does amazing work. He has 2 books on the relaxation response. He was a cardiac doctor, a heart doctor, and he began studying people with hypertension, people who we might call type A personalities, where they were in such a state of intense stress that it was really having negative cardiac outcomes. So Benson was like, what can I do to help these people? he got curious about meditation. I saw meditation come up as an example of a time people felt relaxed. In particular, he focused on transcendental meditation. He studied the brains of people who did transcendental meditation. It's also called TM. And if you practice TM, I'm going to give a really brief summary here, and it's not going to do it justice. But the idea is that you close your eyes, you focus on your breath, and you repeat a focus word. A word, the word could be one, it could be love, it could be peace, it can be anything that you want it to be. In TM, teachers typically assign it. So Benson studied the brains of people doing TM, and he was like, you know, whoa, what am I seeing? These people have superpowers because their brains were miraculous, what was happening in their brains because of meditation. So he went on to bring this to his cardiac patients, and he saw all sorts of positive outcomes, including less anxiety, less alcohol use, to self-medicate, overall better psychological outcomes, all sorts of positive outcomes. So the relaxation response is our superpower, okay? So we're gonna activate our relaxation response right now. If you need to shift in your chair a little bit, if you need to stretch, if you need to take a sip of your tea, whatever you need to do here, take care of yourselves. And I should remind you, as I remind my yoga students, if there's anything I'm offering, everything I say tonight is an offering. It's not a requirement. Take care of yourselves. Do what you need to do. So we're going to do something called belly breathing. And to me, meditation is an advanced practice. Not every teacher would agree with me. I have a lot of friends constantly texting me saying, I'm so stressed out, teach me to meditate. And I usually say, let's not start there. There's some other options for you that might be a little bit better. And again, not every teacher would agree with me. So we're going to do belly breathing because this is really simple. I used belly breathing. I had to have an MRI last year, and it was on my head, and it was a closed MRI. If anyone's ever experienced this, they'll know what I'm talking about. You know, you go into the tube. And I was a little nervous about it, but I said, I'm a yoga teacher. I meditate. I know my breathing. I'll be fine. And I went in the room, and I wasn't going to kind of look. And the woman said, okay, I laid down. She said, I'm just going to put this head restraint on. And my eyes popped open. And I said, what is that? It was like a cage for my head. And there was a cage over my face. It was wild. And I thought about she said, are you going to be okay? And I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to be okay. I closed my eyes, and for 45 minutes, I did belly breathing in the tube, and it got me through. This is something that I use to this day. I used it tonight before this webinar. One of my healers, one of my teachers says 3 breaths every hour. She calls it a mini relaxation. 3 belly breaths. We're going to practice it every hour. Okay. So I hear people say they're really challenged by time and they don't know. A lot of people will say, Karen, how do I fit this relaxation response into my day when I'm already super busy? Right? I hear you. 3 deep belly breaths once an hour. Okay. You can set your phone as a reminder. If you do a certain thing every hour, every time you have a tea, you're going to do a belly breath, or every time you send an email, you're going to do some belly breaths, okay? So in yoga, we call breath practice pranayama. So if anybody's practiced yoga before, that might sound familiar to you. It translates, it means breath regulation or breath restraint. Yogis have been practicing and teaching this for thousands of years. I love that Western science is now validating Eastern practices. So yogis have been doing breath work to manage and activate their parasympathetic nervous system for probably 2,000 years. The West, in the past couple decades, is proving it through science. So if you like that Western approach and you like that proof, awesome. It only, to me, strengthens the work. So there's a link here for you about breath and stress that you can check out. But let's do some belly breathing, okay? We're going to do 3 rounds of breath. I want to emphasize again, I'm not asking anybody to do downward dog before their job interview. I want to actually go on the record as saying I don't think you should do downward dog before your interview unless you're interviewing for a yoga teacher position. This is something you can do in the car on the way to the interview. You can do this in the waiting room before the interview, or if it's a phone interview, you can be doing it before the phone interview. You can do belly breathing during your interview, okay? And this is something you can do with kids. It's something you can also do if you're sort of in that stage of your life where your parents are aging and that's bringing some challenges. You can teach your parents this. So you don't have to lie down like Bunny. You can stay seated. If you want to lie down, knock yourself out, okay? If it feels okay, you can put your hands on your belly. We're going to be breathing in and out through our nose. So let's take a big, deep breath in through the nose. And as you do, I want you to fill your belly up like a balloon. And exhale through the nose. Feel your belly draw towards your spine. So we're going to do 2 more rounds here. Inhaling through your nose, feel your belly expand. And as you exhale, draw your belly to spine. And 1 more, as deep and slow as you can. Inhaling through your nose. Eric, I'm going to hit that one. I'm going to talk about that. And exhale, draw your belly to spine. So just taking a moment here, that's belly breathing. It's one of the simplest breath practices. It's what I typically teach in a beginner's yoga class. Okay, so moment of the night is queuing up a YouTube video. So let's see how this goes here. I'm going to be shifting. Hold on here. I'm going to be shifting your screens to a video of the diaphragm, okay? So there was a question, why is my belly expanding when I'm breathing? That is a cue that we use to help you activate the diaphragm. Your belly isn't actually filling with air. That's a great question. But feeling the belly expand helps us draw the breath down. It helps us, many of us are chest breathers. We breathe up here, and that is very shallow breathing. If you start to notice your breath throughout the day, many of you will notice that you're sort of barely taking any breath. And our goal here is to take deep breaths. So I'm just going to show you here. I am showing you the diaphragm. What I want you to see here is as you inhale, the ribs expand and the diaphragm draws down. As you exhale, the ribs contract and the diaphragm moves up. So on the inhale breath, the diaphragm is moving down. And with the exhale breath, the diaphragm is moving up. So this is on YouTube. You can check this out. Again, the inhale breath, the diaphragm is drawing down. Most people think it's the opposite. So I'm going to bring us back in here to our PowerPoint. And I have to quiet down the diaphragm man. So what I want to share with you there is the importance of visualizing the diaphragm when you breathe. So when you do belly breathing, you're imagining that the diaphragm is drawing down, and that is giving us the feeling of expansion in the belly. Okay? So let's talk here about job searching specifically. So I don't want to focus on the negative tonight, so I'm not going to get too much into the negative aspects of, so I had a question. So the question of the belly breathing, the deep breathing is tied, this has been researched, deep breathing is tied to increased relaxation. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So the reason that it worked for me when I was in that MRI tube and my sympathetic nervous system was like, oh boy, this is a threat. I need to be on. I need to release all these hormones. I need to release epinephrine and adrenaline. And I did the belly breathing to activate the opposite, to turn on the parasympathetic nervous system. When we do our deep breathing, it helps us to relax. It helps to turn on that relaxation response. Okay. And I also want to say there that For some of you, that might not work as well as others. And I'm going to be mentioning some other strategies that might work better. This is not, stress is subjective, and so is stress management. So this is not one size fits all. So I recommend giving something a try for a week or two. And if it's not having a noticeable impact, maybe try something else. Okay. So again, job searching. Unemployment is associated with a host of negative outcomes. And again, we're not going to dive into those because we want to stay positive tonight. Even if we're employed in job searching, we're remembering that first lesson, okay? Any stimuli burns energy because our bodies want to get back to balance. So if we're job searching, that's those stimuli of the job search practice or the job search process are stressors, okay? So I just made a list here of some things that I've been working on in my job search that I'm sure many of you have been working on. These are stressors. These are burning my energy. And it's important to acknowledge that. Are these distress or eustress? Is this good stress or bad stress? We could argue that it's a little bit of both, but job searching is a lot. Okay. The other thing I thought I would share is one of my teachers recently said to me, Karen, are you anxious or are you excited? They can sometimes feel a lot alike, and the job search, I think, brings up a lot of excitement, right? So we get that email that we've got, we've scored the phone interview. We're so excited, we have to tell somebody. And then there's like an immediate, oh my gosh, I've got to prep for that interview. So just noticing that sometimes what we might be experiencing as anxiety is actually excitement. There's no right answer here. What's true for you is what's important. So let's talk about some things, and you might want to write this down. What are some traits, what are some positive traits that you want to cultivate, that you want to wire, that you want to practice so that you become an expert? What are some positive traits that you want to cultivate during your job search? For me, the 4 that I chose: focus, determination, gratitude, and confidence. So you might want to take a moment and jot down, what do you want to bring into your job search? Or I'm hearing people maybe aren't job searching, but perhaps are in career challenges. What are some positive traits that you want to cultivate in your work life, in your career life? For some of you, you might consider it a calling. What are some positive traits that you want to cultivate? And then think for a minute about how stress is impacting those positive traits. Is it decreasing them for you? So for me, stress definitely decreases gratitude. I tend to focus on what's not going well when I'm overly stressed, rather than focused on everything that is going well. If I push pause and take a break to notice what is going well, I usually am kind of embarrassed that I was, focusing so much on the negative. When I am overly stressed, my confidence decreases. That imposter syndrome that pops up. I lose focus. I'm less determined. So noticing that stress is having that impact is really important to helping motivate us to do something about it. Okay. So the reason I want you to do this practice is to notice how stress is impacting your job search or your career. Seeing that a little bit more clearly can be a great motivation for you to take the next step and creating a practice that will activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Okay. We are amazing creatures. We can adapt. Human beings adapt to so much, right? That's one of our strengths, but we can adapt to a negative environment. And looking at that and seeing how this stress is impacting our lives is really important, because we need to get that motivation in order to make a change. Okay. So the goal here, again, there's no one size fits all, is to really think about how stress is impacting you, and then to think about how we can manage our stress versus the other way around. I don't like the feeling that stress is managing me. I have been there. I have been there, done that. I'm sure many of you can relate to that. I want to manage my stress. I'm seeing somebody sharing when they're stressed out, self-sabotage, procrastination. We can absolutely see how those would impact a job search, right? Procrastination is a big one. I see that a lot with my students that I work with. I teach college success strategies. Procrastination is a big one. one of the books I'm going to recommend is called Brain Rules by John Medina. He's a neuroanatomist, and he's a brain guy. And he talks about how our executive function skills are the things that help us manage our time. I saw somebody say in the chat, I don't have enough time. Here's what's crazy. Stress turns off the parts of our brain that does time management. Okay, let me say that again. Stress turns off the parts of our brain that manages our time. So when we are under stress, our time management skills go down really, really quickly. Because think about it, if you're being chased by a predator, you don't need to worry about time management, right? Our bodies are doing something really smart. They're funneling the resources to the crisis, right? What do you need to worry about time management for if you're under stress, right? Well, the thing is that in modern life, there's no predator, right? Typically. So stress absolutely is so tied into time management. If you're having a time management challenge, what I tell people is look at your stress. Activate the parasympathetic nervous system. If you feel like you don't have enough time in the day, it might not be about time management. It might be about stress. When those parts of your brain come back online, you will then be able to do what you need to do to manage your time better. Okay, so let's talk about, so we did a few things tonight. We noticed and assessed, we assigned our stress a number. That helps us to distance ourselves from our stress. That's an important practice. We did our somatic, we did our hands, shoulders, belly exercise. We tensed and we released. And we also tried belly breathing. Those are all things that we can do sort of on the way. There's a lot of things we can do. I don't think you're not going to sing before a job interview in the waiting room. I wanted to give you things that you could really do right up until you go into that interview, or that you could do in the car on the way there. But there are some other things I want to mention. So remember, what do we want to get great at? What do we want to wire? Do we want to wire stress? Or do we want to wire those positive things that we identified, the determination, the focus? We get to choose what we wire by what we do, okay? A great book, one of the things I hear people say so often is that their day starts in chaos. If you feel that, feel free to share in the chat. I hear a lot of people say their day starts in chaos. They kind of wake up and they're rushing, and they're under so much stress, and they leave the house and they're already so stressed out. Laura Vanderkam wrote a book about morning routines. It's phenomenal. It's really accessible. She gives lots of examples. Altering your morning routine can be a huge self and stress management strategy. I get up now an hour earlier than I used to in order to have time to do what I need to do to manage my stress. Another thing I'll recommend is the daily gratitude list. So simple. This takes 5 minutes, writing down every morning a page of things that you're grateful for, or 5 things that you're grateful for, or 3, or 1. Start where you are. That helps to shift our brains to what is working rather than focusing on what isn't working. Writing in a journal, remember, we're going to get those stressful feelings and thoughts out into the light, and sometimes they can't survive there. So we want to bring those things out into a journal. And here's a list. I'm not going to read this to you. You get the idea. There are so many different ways to manage stress. One of the ones I do want to highlight, though, is what's called restorative yoga. If you practice restorative yoga, I'd love to hear in the chat. The sole intention of restorative yoga is to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. I really challenge everybody tonight in the webinar to try a restorative yoga class. If finances are an issue, I'm going to give you some free options to access that. That is very different than the mainstream media perception or depiction of what yoga looks like. There are no downward dogs in restorative yoga. There are no, it's about using props. It's like having somebody kind of tuck you in and put you to bed. You get into a very comfortable position and you stay there for 10 or 15 minutes and you focus on your breath. For many people, the first time they do it, it's like, what is this? And then the more they do it, they learn to activate the PNS, okay? What activates your relaxation response? If you want to share that in the chat, I'd love to hear it. The one thing I want to say, and I know we're getting toward the end here, many people crash when they get home for a long day, and they stare at like Netflix or their screen. Um, that's not activating in most cases, the parasympathetic nervous system. I don't want to say that it's never doing that, but for many people, that's freeze. So we want to practice calm. Calm feels very different than staring at a screen. Calm feels completely different. Yeah, Joyce, so restorative yoga is very accessible. We can chat offline about that as well. So take a minute here. I want to get us moving along. Write down in your journal maybe one or two things you heard in this webinar that you'd like to try. Maybe it's the belly breathing. Maybe it's restorative yoga. Maybe it's journaling or a daily gratitude list. At some point tonight, I want you to put those ideas, those plans into your planner or into your phone, however you keep track of your time, so that you're going to do this, okay? Change is about making decisions. So make a decision tonight that you are going to activate that parasympathetic nervous system and take care of yourself and take care of your stress. Find support, find somebody to do these things with you. I know you all have friends that are stressed out. You can utilize the UMass resources as well, UMass alumni. Finding people who are going through similar things can be really beneficial. I can promise you that you are not alone in experiencing stress or chronic stress. A few resources for you. If you're looking for yoga or meditation, there's an app called Mind Body that allows you to search near you. There are online yoga and meditation websites. I write for Yoga International. They have amazing resources. Most of these websites you can sign up for free for a couple weeks to try them. If you don't have time, you can't get out to a yoga class, you can do it at home. You can do restorative yoga at home. There's like Gayam and Yoga Glow. You can Google it and find them. Many of them are so affordable, like $8 or $10 a month for unlimited yoga. Your local library will have yoga DVDs. Another great resource is John Kabat-Zinn. He does a mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, out of UMass Medical, the UMass Mindfulness Center. So that's another great resource for you. Joy, I love what you wrote about restorative yoga. I love other people are saying it, not just me. I can't recommend it enough. So here are some of the books that I mentioned tonight. My two favorites I want to highlight: John Medina's Brain Rules. If any of you work in education, this is just over the moon. I love this book. It talks about how our brains work in terms of learning. The other book, again, that I really want to highlight is Self-Reg by Stuart Shanker. Phenomenal, particularly for parents or anybody working with small kids. So we are right at that time. I know other Karen has a few things to wrap up with you. I do want to show you my email. Feel free to email me if you have any questions offline, KarenRayCosta@gmail. You can also contact me through my writing website. I've given you some additional resources here. Stress and mental health concerns obviously overlap. I'm seeing a lot more to break the stigma around mental health challenges in Massachusetts, which is really exciting. So there are resources available. If this has stirred up any questions that you have, hopefully those give you some resources to reach out to. So with that, I'm going to stop my screen share here. If you have questions, I do see the chat, and I know Karen has some things to get to as well, and we want to kind of honor that hour limit.
Okay.
So I'll keep my eye on the chat, but I want to kind of toss it back to Karen.
All right, thank you. I'm going to just click to a few different resources here. So the Alumni Association at UMass Amherst, we provide multiple career resources for you. We have a program called Alumni Advisors that allows you to give career advice and also to receive career advice. You can have resume review help, mock interview help, and also just a career conversation. And all of this is free of charge. You connect through the platform and it sets you up with a conference call line. So no matter where you live and no matter who you're trying to approach with what kind of question, all of the people in there as advice givers are willing to talk and are wanting to share. So it's a great resource to you. If you want to give advice as well, because I think we all have our own expertise, we encourage you to also join that as well. We have career counselors, 6 different career counselors that you can connect with for resources, anything from working on salary negotiation, resume review, helping to do a little bit of figuring out maybe some job search pieces and strategies, or sorting out as you transition in a career change. We have different career counselors with different foci, and there's great resources there, and they want to talk with you. The first session with the career counselors is complimentary, and beyond that, if you would like an additional session or two, there is a cost attached to that, but some people say, you know, just that one session was great. I had one session with several different ones. I also used alumni advisors, so there's definitely great resources available. We also have networking opportunities. We have quite a few opportunities happening in person. We're also going to be launching some virtual networking opportunities where individuals will be able to interact one-on-one with one another. So watch our event listing and other email updates for information on that. Webinars such as this one will be posted onto our webpage so that you can watch portions of it again or get some of the information that maybe you missed as you were absorbing it the first time, or explore ones that you weren't able to attend live. We also have a Career Connect jobs portal through the Career Services Office where they post different jobs from employers all over the country. So we encourage you to also check that out as well. When you go to umassalumni.com, you'll be able to see all of our career resources information and be able to see our full event calendar in order to register for additional resources. This here is the website address. It's also the main phone number and the main email. So if you have any questions about today's session before we get things posted up on the web, or just additional follow-up thoughts on future sessions and things like that, please feel free to reach out to us and let us know. We can only get better with your feedback, so we appreciate your input at all times. Also, as we move forward, you're going to be receiving a survey by email with the email that you used to sign up for this. So please complete that survey and give us some feedback on what your thoughts were on this session. So I don't know, Karen, if you have any closing thoughts, any last comments as we sign off tonight?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for coming, and I just want to emphasize again that this is not, that there's nothing abnormal about experiencing stress and that you aren't alone in that. But the really important thing is to interrupt that stress cycle, and hopefully you found one thing tonight that you can do to make that shift. And feel free to email me if you have any questions.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of your insights tonight, Karen, and all of the exercises you took us through. Hopefully everyone that attended, you were able to get something out of it, and you'll also connect with us for more resources in the future and more webinars. Have a good evening, and thank you so much for spending some time with us tonight.